Mr. Allan Louisy was the leader of the Saint Lucia Labour Party in February 1979 when the country attained political independence. Mr. Louisy, yourself a former judge, you were elected Prime Minister 5 months later and was at the helm of the government during the period some persons have described as turbulent, however significant. We will reflect on this period with you in a moment, but perhaps let's start by trying to find out from you, if you could recall 1979 around independence. Where were you? What were your thoughts then?
I don't remember where I was, but I would either be in Castries or in Library, attending some independence function.
Okay. And prior to this, we recall that the independence talks in the UK. Can you take us back to there? What were the issues? What is it like for you traveling to London at this time?
Well, we were asked by the British government to come up to settle the question of independence. And that's why we, both the opposition, a delegation from the opposition and the government went up. And we had before us the draft constitution proposed by them. And we went through them. We didn't have many difficulties. We had, I think, 3 points. One, the question of being a senator. We were not sure that we wanted senator. But I think, and if we wanted senator at all, we'd have to be elected. But that, they didn't accept that. Then the other point is we wanted whoever's going to be Prime Minister of Saint Lucia would have to be born in Saint Lucia. So we had that. And
was that accepted, or what was the decision?
Oh no, the decision, the British government would accept that.
Okay.
They didn't accept that. And what is the other point? That and the two. I don't know that there's any other. But we didn't have any difficulty going through the draft as such, you know.
Who was part of the delegation from your party at the time?
I think Mema, Cauldron, Josie, George. That one, Josie, George, I remember. Maybe
it's a small delegation.
Yeah, maybe Winston Snack. I'm not too
sure.
Winston Snack may have been there.
Okay. But it seemed that after the changing of the flags, we know the usual paraphernalia with independence and so forth, there was a change in government in 1979, and you were at the helm of that government. Why did you think that soon after independence we had that change?
Well, you know, the Labour Party never said they did not want to be, they didn't want independence, you know. The point is that we wanted a referendum, right? And that is what the British government had promised, you know. They would have had a referendum, I think, but they didn't accept that. And the people were very dissatisfied, and we campaigned vigorously, you know, for that, you know. So I think the people were disappointed that they didn't get it. And that is why we had a little problem. And at the time, too, the people wanted to change.
Why they wanted to change? What were the issues you think that caused them to want to change at this time?
They were dissatisfied with the government, the WP government. They were dissatisfied. The performance.
What would you say was your own role in that change? I mean, you came as leader of the party at that time.
I didn't come as leader of the party. I came and I was made leader. I was made leader of the party.
Okay.
So anything that happened would have to, any changes would have to be considered by all of us. It's not my change alone, not my change alone.
But you were out of Saint Lucia for quite a while before that. I want you to take us back to that period, your initial stages as someone in the legal profession, rising to the level of a judge. Where did it start? And where did you go around before you came back to Saint Lucia?
When I started off here as a legal,
right.
as a lawyer here.
As a lawyer here, right.
Yes, I was articled to Sir Gordon Gordon. In those days, you could become a local barrister without going to England after 5 years. So I was articled to him. And of course, he was in a lot of politics, and I believe that's where I got interested in it, but not on his side. I was on the other side. And from there, I was registrar. When I went into practice for about 2 years. And then I started writing about the workers not being treated satisfactorily, in their jobs. And I'm sorry, I even advocated that if they did anything to increase their salary, then nobody should complain. So from then, after I started to write these letters, there was somebody who was appointed registrar of the Supreme Court from Trinidad. And when I started to write these letters, they revoked his appointment, or they revoked the offer, and they offered me the job of registrar, so I took that. And from then, I started to give them a little trouble as registrar, because I think I became a member of the Civil Service Association and so on. And from that, I was, I was sent away from Saint Lucia to a little island called Montserrat. In other words, they exiled me, right? But I'm thankful that I ever went to Montserrat, because it was from Montserrat that I was able to become magistrate of Antigua, crown attorney of Montserrat, crown attorney of Dominica. Then from there I went to Jamaica, as you know, as a resident magistrate, and then as registrar of the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court.
And that was in Jamaica?
That was in Jamaica.
So that sort of pinnacle of your legal career, you didn't really serve in Saint Lucia?
Yes. So when I came from Jamaica, I came back here. I was offered the job of a judge here, you see, and I got that there. And that is where I...
Tell us a bit about that period as a judge in Saint Lucia.
Well, as a judge, not in Saint Lucia, in
the Eastern Caribbean.
In Eastern Caribbean, yeah. Yes. Well, I moved from, I was posted at first in Dominica, then Antigua. And that's where I retired from Antigua. I did a spell on the Court of Appeal just before I retired. I could have gone on longer than my retirement age. I could have gone on. But it was then that my friends from Saint Lucia came to ask me whether I can come down to see whether I can help them with the Labour Party.
But I'm a bit curious, how did you keep in touch with Saint Lucia politics while you were out for most of that time,
yes,
knowing that the telecommunications technology was not as advanced as it is today?
Yes, but telephone, and some of the boys actually came. Some of the Labour Party people actually came to me in Antigua. Yeah, came to me more than once. I got George Murray, Neville Snack. They came to me, and somebody else asked me when I would come down. And then I made up my mind to do so. And I got into trouble with my good friend, Saint Lucia, who was then acting Chief Justice. We were very good friends. And he got annoyed with me because I left. He said I should not have gone yet, because I could have gone on to 65, you see. And I left it at 56 or 57.
So what really convinced you to come back, finally?
Because that was part of me, as I really wanted to make a contribution, not necessarily to, well, I shouldn't have not to Saint Lucia. I had the people at Laborie, right? Many years I had promised that I would come back to serve them. And that is exactly what I did, part of that. And my good friend, George Charles, we were very good friends, you know. He persuaded me to come. to join him, you know. So that's why I was down there. But by the time I came, he was off the scene. Mm-hmm.
Tell us a bit about practicing at this time in your early stages compared to now. You said initially you were articled, which means that you didn't have to go overseas for training.
No, I didn't have to go overseas.
Right.
We had to do an examination here.
Okay.
Almost quite a few of the subjects being the same as they do in England.
Okay.
So after 5 years, and the appointed examiners, my examiners were Sir Allan Louisy and Mr. Legrand. Legrand was very strong on the old law, you know, he knew that very well. And you know, Sir Allan Louisy was a very brilliant jurist. Yeah? So they were my examiners, and I didn't do too badly. I did 80%, that is all.
That's not too bad.
That's not 80%, and I got
Rather
through.
modest, I must say.
No, I was happy because I didn't think I would have done so well.
Okay. And then going on to practice.
Well, I practiced for about 2 years.
Okay.
Practiced for about 2 years. I was called in 45 and 47. I went to be registrar. I got the job of registrar. Well, the practice was not as I see it today. You know, it was a good practice. No difficulties or anything like that, you know. I think there was more cooperation among the few lawyers we had.
It's quite a lot now.
Oh, well, yes, I understand that.
I'm curious how you were able to separate your passion for, I guess, the politics of your own hometown, coming back to library, your desire to come back to serve, with the fact that you were supposed to be serving as a judge. How were you able to separate these two?
Well, you mean whilst I was a judge, whether
What year? Because obviously you were still thinking.
Oh yes, I was still thinking. Huh? I was still thinking. Well, I was determined to come back here to serve, you know, and to serve under the Labour government. So that's all that is.
What, any specific reason why your preference at Labour government?
Well, because I always try to help the people who are poor and needy and who need help. So I thought the best way channel was the Labour Party. And at the time, I think you had the PPP, something like that at one time and so on. But I felt that's where I should be. And that's where my people here, the library people. Because I don't know if you heard some of my speeches. I never said library. I said labori. Labory.
Yes. People have their own perceptions about this period between 1979 and 1981, where for some part of that period you were Prime Minister of Saint Lucia, which marked a turning point in the politics of Saint Lucia. And certainly some of the moments people remember, yourself, the alliances with private sector and politics to lead towards the collapse of that regime at the time. You also went to Grenada and shared a platform with Maurice Bishop. I mean, these were some of the high points people remember of that period. But what could you say were some of the main achievements for you as Prime Minister during that period? What were some of your disappointments as well?
Well, I was disappointed in the fact that we had campaigned very vigorously to form the government, right? And when we formed, just before we formed the government, we started to have difficulties with certain members of the party. And that is my great disappointment.
And the achievements? What do you think you achieved during that period?
Well, our achievement is that we were able to establish diplomatic relations with quite a few people. And we were able to move easily, although we had obstacles at the time.
And would you recall some lasting lessons for you as an individual and for the country out of that period?
Well, depending on the lessons.
Well, you tell us.
Well, I was disappointed. I don't even remember that they defeated my budget. I think it is called a bikini budget. Why I was disappointed is that when preparing a budget, all the ministries have to make a contribution, as you know, and the ministers were involved. And well, what happened is that a certain faction did not support it, although a minister there took part in the preparation of the budget. Two of them actually. And when they came to the vote, well, they had the votes, 5 votes, I think, from the, how many did they have? 5 from the UWP, I think, and George's faction. So we were equal, almost equal then. Then one of my ministers who said he would support the budget, he was one of the first when he said, those against, he is one of them. Those against, he said, he's against it. Well, budget, we didn't get through. And that is very my biggest point. That is why I made the decision to resign. Because I mean, if I felt that I was not wanted, so I resigned. That is all.
But wasn't there some sort of dilemma in your mind having the same persons who wanted you back? You thought they didn't want you at the same time?
Well, no. Let me explain that. When I joined the Labour Party, 2 individuals who had been, I think they've been in politics before, you know, but never was able to succeed in achieving what they want to achieve. But when I went, and they wouldn't join the Labour Party until I had joined. Right? So it's after I joined that they joined.
Who are these people?
My good friend George, and he's a good friend of mine too. I say so not because he had all the struggle and so on. Not just that, because up to two days he went to the hospital and we spoke. When he passed, he dropped in here to see me. When we were when I'm in Castries, he would hold up traffic to talk to me. So these are the 2 people who really I was disappointed in.
Independence, 25 years of independence means quite a lot to our country. And I want you to just share some of your thoughts with us on where you think Saint Lucia has grown, whether it's in terms of economics, politics, and the social life of our country. What are your thoughts on Saint Lucia at 25?
Well, aren't we in trouble, I think, with our the economy, which we can't blame Saint Lucia for, because that is worldwide. We have no control over that economy. I mean, look at what is happening in America. Look at Bush, it's a lot of trouble about the economy. All right, so we can't be trouble about it. We just got a beating on that. Bananas. Where globalization. And then we had the US and Europe. Again, at a squabble. Bananas was the target. You know? So we got caught in that.
Politically, you think that we have matured after 25 years of political independence?
Well, I would have hoped so, but I see so many little things happening which does not seem to be that we are mature yet. Little things happening, I think, I should say, between the parties. You know, things that I think they should not pay any attention to. There are more serious matters to attend to, you know, than to go on this, or any little thing that comes up. And what I think we call Roro there. I don't believe in that. There's too much of the Roro.
But what are some of the matters you think they should attend to? Can you point to 1 or 2 of them that's...
Matters that affects the lives of the people. Lives of the people. Concentrate more on them than some of the other things. And when party is criticizing another for some fault or other, they should always give the, what is the solution? We just hear people saying things, there's no solution. So I believe that this is wrong and so on, but we would think that's so and so. You don't hear that. You should be able to hear that. Yeah.
As a former judge, former prime minister, what do you think of Do you think there's a need for reviewing of the Constitution that was adopted in 1979?
I think so. After 25 years, you know, there must be something in it that we didn't see or we didn't know, right? And I think that the time has come for them to have a review, whatever it is you would call it, or some amendments to certain sections and so on. But I'm not able to tell you which particular section, you know. But if I'm asked to take part in it, I would take part in it, and then, because I was there in the beginning, so I would know exactly what it is.
Like someone who's traveled across the region, I'm sure you would have been sort of committed to the issue of regional integration and Caribbean unity and so forth. So. You still feel strong about this?
Very, very strong about it. I don't think these islands can get anywhere by themselves without integration.
And I mean, consequently, would you want to share your views on the Caribbean Court of Justice?
Oh yes. Well, we have been, as you know, certain matters go to Privy Council, and I think that is why they're trying to avoid now that we should have our own court in the area. And I support that, but I am a little worried, you know, that the judges in the United Kingdom don't know us out here at all. So I don't think there could be any kind of sort of interference or anything like that. Right? Now, in these islands, you know, you lived in there, and maybe there may not be interference, you know, directly, but there may be interference indirectly. But I think we have eminent people here, you know, who could be judges. In England, they may have more experience, but we have people who can do it, and I think we have honest people who can do it, and I would support it. You would support it? I would support it, yeah.
So you're saying that perhaps because you're so close, that you're that familiar, that it's not possible to be impartial?
You mean
yeah, if, for instance, you have the Caribbean Court of Justice, you were suggesting that because...
The people you mean around,
right,
yeah. I know there are some people would attempt it. Okay. Some people would attempt it, because I know when I was a judge, you know, people would attempt, you know, to interfere and so on. They would attempt, but I take it that we have honest people and so on, and that they would accept, they wouldn't fall for that. But I would support the court.
Do you think that sufficient is being done also to promote regional integration? Or do you think that our current level of politics in each country is actually hindering Caribbean integration?
Yes, I think so, because every man wants to be the king of his own place. Nobody, because if you have this integration and so on, so we don't call it federation because that one failed. But you would have to have somebody, one person at the head. And I don't think it's not going to be easy.
Do you think we could ever achieve that at any point in time?
I mean,
have a sort of a one Caribbean leader?
Next generation.
Having left public life some time ago, you've now settled in Labrie and continue to work. I mean, could you share with us what you do now, how you continue to earn a living?
Well, I don't earn a living. I get a little pension. But I work from 9:30 to about 2:30 in the afternoon. And I get some work. Now, although I confine myself 9:30 to 2:30, but anybody who wants me after that can always see me. And I do a lot of work for people, you know, without any compensation at all, depending on the people, those who can afford. But usually I do a lot of work for them.
So you're still really into public service?
Oh yes, I'm really into public service. I do a lot of work, support the sports thing and so on, you know, sports, all sports, churches and clubs and, you know.
Okay. I want to just to get you, you know, some of your thoughts on our current leaders, political leaders. Probably want to take them step by step.
Yeah.
I want to point specifically to Sir John, who took Saint Lucia independence in 1979. Your sort of objective assessment of his tenure as Prime Minister and himself as a political leader?
Well, I would say that, you know, it's not easy to to be a leader of a party or anything like that. They're not easy at all, and you must expect that to get a lot of criticism and so on. But I think on the whole that John Compton has served pretty ably to bring Saint Lucia forward. Right? Of course, he has made mistakes, I have no doubt about it at all. And I think one of the mistakes was, although I was not against independence as such, that if he had gone to the referendum, I think the people would have accepted him better. And I think he has done well, and I hope that his name would appear in the history of this country when they're recorded.
The other one is George Odlum, deceased, who...
Oh, George. George, maybe people don't know it, was a gifted politician. Right? He wanted to make a contribution. But George wanted to make the contribution his own way. Right? For instance, George wanted to be top dog. He yearned to be Prime Minister of Saint Lucia. But there must be a way to do it. So, from that point of view, and I think otherwise, he really tried to change the politics of Saint Lucia, and he did that. And I believe that will be one of the marks in his political career.
Did you feel sort of disappointed? I think you mentioned it earlier, the fact that he played a critical part in the split of the government during 1979.
Yes, I was a little disappointed, but I had known something might have happened that way. Because whilst we were campaigning, we started campaigning on the basis that whoever is a political leader, I was a political leader, and I was the one being put forward at all meetings that I would be the Prime Minister. Right? But just towards the end, when we have gained a lot of strength, right, that he started to, I could see him jostling, to say that, well, he thinks he ought to. He didn't tell me that, but I could see that. In fact, I did say that we might form the government, we might win the elections, but not form the government. That almost happened, and I'll tell you how it almost happened. After the elections, the elected members of my party met to select not the Prime Minister, to select ministers. And as soon as we came, I remember somebody started the proceedings and started, well, Allan would be Prime Minister and so on. Immediately, George and Josie, objected immediately. And George went on to say that, no, he didn't think so, and so on and so on. And, well, we almost had a stalemate, eh? So when I remember I told you that we're not even able to form the government, and I have to go and doing through all that work. So I told them then that, all right, if I'm not going to say who should be Prime Minister, right? But I'm prepared to remain as Prime Minister for 6 months. And after that, the elected members can appoint whoever they want. But I confess that if I had done that, they would have appointed George Prime Minister. But I couldn't do it either for the reason that, we said 6 months, but 3 months after I was in office, George wrote me to ask me to step down. Well, I would accept that. And in the meantime, we had got information that he had established diplomatic relations with some of the people that we didn't want any diplomatic relations with, and that put me off. And then they were sending people to train in Grenada, Libya, and in Cuba. For what purpose? To overthrow their own government. So I held on. And those people who were supporting me told me not to stand down. And that is why he really went out for me. But I believe in a lot of prayer, I prayed. Every time I walked into the cabinet room before I walked in there, I remember my friend Nicholas Taylor, the late Nicholas Taylor, gave me a prayer to say, and I said it. And do you know that there were suppose you don't know that, there were guns in the cabinet room? Did you know that?
Well, you're telling us now.
You didn't know? You didn't know that? Yes, people had guns in the cabinet room.
Mm-hmm. And that was not normally permitted, was it?
Oh, of course not. I mean, don't have that in there. But that didn't frighten me. Eh? Strange, I was very cool about it. That didn't frighten me. But I had already prepared myself, depending solely on the master. Mm-hmm. I prepared myself every morning, 2 o'clock. I went to my bathroom, I went on my knees and prayed that everything worked all right. And that is my ammunition,
your strength.
My strength. And that's what I live by now.
So you never had a formal agreement to step down after 6 months?
No, there's nothing like that, no agreement. But how could I make an agreement? I mean, no prime minister, well, you know, a prime minister can't appoint another prime minister. It has to be the elected members. So there's no question of any promise that any agreement, anything like that. And of course, even there was an agreement, all right, suppose there was an agreement, how come I'm asked to step down after 3 months? Huh?
But there was also a sort of turbulence in that period as well. I just want to find out how you handle it in terms of as a prime minister and personally, when people went on the streets, private sector in arms with the very members of your government, and also the occasions when I could recall that the Governor General also had threatened to resign, and perhaps he did. That's Allan. How did you manage and cope with all of these turbulent situations?
Well, I just kept cool. That is what I prayed. And well, it was only a faction, eh? Mm-hmm. That's a faction that did that. But we had they had the bigger share of the faction, so they could disturb us. They could throw us. When they tried to disturb us, I appointed people who were ordinary members of the House. I gave them ministers without portfolio. So I had my cabinet there with me.
Please. So all the time you knew that your position was there, so you were strategizing all the time?
All the time.
Okay. What would you have done differently if I guess the situation was different? I mean, if you didn't have that kind of opposition and so forth. Would you have stayed the entire term as Prime Minister?
No. I already said that I would not stay the entire time because I wanted to get back to library, you know, and enjoy myself. And it's very strange, if George had not shown these tendencies into the faction, I would have recommended. I could not appoint.
I would have recommended him as Prime Minister?
Okay, I would have recommended him.
Right. Okay. But you certainly wanted to come back to library to play dominoes, huh?
Well, you see the table there, you know.
Well, perhaps you could move on from George Odlum, deceased, to perhaps to Kenny Anthony, who's the current Prime Minister.
Oh, Kenny, yeah. Yes, Kenny has come, as I say, it is very difficult to lead a party at this time, you know. And he has come, well, you know, not even, look at what is happening in America. Look at Bush. Look at the trouble. The Prime Minister of England and the other heads of states in the other countries, and it's not easy. But I think, on the whole, that he is doing fairly well. I would say he's doing fairly well, and in the circumstances, you know, the way things are now, he's doing fairly well. Except that, he wouldn't like me to say so, but he could be a little stubborn.
He can be a little stubborn.
He can be a little stubborn. But otherwise, I think he's an intelligent person, honest, right? And I think these are things that you have to watch for. Okay. And he's very interested in Saint Lucia.
What are your main concerns about Saint Lucia today? What worries you about the country as we take off from 25, perhaps?
Yeah. It's the, what I would say is that I would like us to, maybe it's not possible, the values we placed some years ago, you know, the kind of values we placed on certain things, I wish we could have that now. You know, in other words, let us have instead of hostility, let us have peace. Instead of violence, let us have quietness and so on. But that's not taking place at the moment, and I'm very worried about that, because I don't know what kind of example we'd give to those people coming on. And I think that those of us who are in a position should be able to practice the good things that the values that we had before, so that those coming down would accept it. But it's not going to be easy for them to accept, because we must have role models and so on. And the question of crime. I mean, I've never known anything like that. I mean, I could have walked up anywhere in Castries, anywhere about the place now. No, I don't think what you do that. I mean, you'd be afraid to do that. And I think that something should be done to, I use a strong word, to crush the criminal element. But they must support the police on that, because the police is always getting a lot of criticism, and it's not easy for the man to be criticized for everything they do. I'm not saying they should not get criticism, but I think the time has come for something to be done to crush. Otherwise, I mean, we're in a lot of trouble in Saint Lucia. The way things are going.
What advice can you give, say, a leader of a country in terms of trying to address this problem?
Well, you have to get to the community will have to, first of all, the community would have to assist. Community would have to assist. The church would have to assist, and so on. And then measures must be put in place, right, to stop that. There must be something with the police, because we have the independent police, and the population, because right now you don't get many people trying to help the police, any of these things, Something happens here, you won't get anybody going to see what happened, Okay.
Is there anything that makes you feel good about being in Saint Lucia today?
Well, as I just told you, I felt very good before we had this crime wave, I would call it, right? But I'm glad we have got independence, all right. It's good to have independence, but what the crime situation, crime in Saint Lucia is, I'm very disturbed about it. But we have to do something.
As we're about to wrap up this interview, Mr. Louisy, any final thoughts from you?
Well,
to share with the Saint Lucian audience, the Saint Lucian people.
Well, I think that what I've noticed is that we have fallen away from, should I say religious duties or Christianity and so on. People don't pay much attention to that now. And that, I believe, is very, very, very serious. Because without him, we can do nothing. So that I think that we should try and get back to that. The young people around the place don't bother too much about going to church or talking about God or anything like that. So I think that we should get back to the church or whatever it is to see that we can bring this country back to what it was and not blame this party or that party, and so on.
Well, we've been speaking to Mr. Allan Louisy, Prime Minister of Saint Lucia in 1979, former judge, and one who took Saint Lucia, won the first election after independence. And Mr. Louisy, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you very much.
Well, it's a pleasure.